anything new that you want to put yourself out there, I know that there's going to be that fear, what if this, what if that? I think the truth of the matter is, right, like even if I look back at it 5 years ago, I don't even know if I remember what the fears were. So you're just kind of telling yourself stuff that you can't do things based just at that time. Even if those fears are true, so what? Still do it anyway, right? Because let's say nobody did watch it or nobody did like it. All right. You did it for yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? That I think that satisfaction to say that you did something because you wanted to and you tried to do good in the world. I think that for me, I think you're going to live a much more fulfilling life than saying, I wanted to do something, I didn't do it, and then you just regret.
You don't have to wait until you reach financial independence to start enjoying your life. You can do that much earlier and start living a life that you love and that's true to you. Welcome to Freedom Before FIRE. Using FIRE and life design techniques, we help you create freedom on your way to FIRE instead of waiting until you're retired to do the things that light you up. I'm your host Greg, a FIRE movement and life design enthusiast. If you're itching to get freedom now, then let's do this. Hello there and welcome back to another episode. I've been really looking forward to this one today because we've got the awesome Atto J on the show. So Atto is a host and founder of the Savvy Wallet platform, which he started back in 2020. It has now over 200 episodes and has around 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. And on there, he interviews the brightest minds in business and finance. And bear in mind, he's doing all of this while holding down a full-time career in tech, which he shifted to from being in law. Across his journey, he's built a wealth of personal finance knowledge, and that's exactly why I wanted to get him on the show, but to also give us a bit of a UK perspective on things. So Atto, a very warm welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much, Greg, for having me. I know that this has been a long time coming, so I'm glad to be having this conversation. Hopefully, as I always say, like on podcasts I go, I'm hoping that I can provide as much value as possible, obviously, you know, to your audience listening. But yeah, I'm very excited to be on here.
Sounds good. And yeah, thank you. And yeah, so maybe just to kick off, then I mentioned about like what you do as like your sort of full-time career. I know you're like a senior consultant in tech. What exactly do you do? I'm just really curious about if do you mind touching on that? What does that mean?
Yeah. So you know what's crazy about a consultant, right? I think a consultant, generally speaking, is kind of like a chameleon in the sense that with consultancy, it's possible that you would work across loads of different industries, which I have done at my current company, Slalom, or you work across loads of different roles. Now, where it differs is what the consultancy kind of works on. So my consultancy is mostly focused on technology consulting and sometimes like business and strategy stuff. So the kind of work that I do would be talking about delivery of, you know, software. So like very simply, some of the biggest software platforms in the world, like Instagram. So there'll be a team behind that doing that. So now where my role sits in, or what I'm currently doing as a senior consultant is I'm what's called, the role that I'm doing is what's called an Agile Coach. So I coach squads to essentially deliver software using a certain methodology called Agile, right? So there's loads of different frameworks for Agile, but I don't want to go down the tech route too much. So yeah, normally coach squads that have never done that to essentially, so we have certain meetings to, demonstrate how to run those meetings. We have certain frameworks to demonstrate those frameworks. We have certain techniques to demonstrate that those frameworks. So really trying to take them from a team that don't really know much about how to deliver in this way to a team that's self-sufficient. But previously, before I was an Agile coach, I did a bit of product management as well. I did a bit of business analysis, which is very popular. Both are popular, actually, business analysis. and product management. So yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, as a consultant at Slalom, I've done loads of different roles. It's not just Agile Coach. I mean, my next client engagement might be product management in like another industry. So right now, I'm working in the insurance industry at the moment.
Oh, awesome. When you say agile, is that like Scrum and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
You
Basically,
have to like have
Scrum.
meetings in
Yeah,
the morning and then you go do little sprints and
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know it. Yeah, sprints. Yeah. So things like that. Yeah, because I
nice.
think I
Love all of
understand that
that.
you're a project manager. So yeah, you definitely understand that lingo. Yeah. So it's really just like educating teams that've never really done this, and then coaching them to be able to do this sufficiently, and just make sure that they have the right behaviors. A lot of it is actually mindset that you're coaching essentially. So what's good for me is because it really tests my knowledge on it, but it gives me an element of I'm shifting from me doing the stuff because I know how to do it, but then empower other people to be able to do it. So actually, it's kind of funny because Savvy Wallet is educational, and my job actually as an agile coach is educational. So it's like I'm educating people morning to night. To be
All the
honest
time.
with you, yeah, exactly.
Nice. Well, I know you don't want to be talking about work on this one too long. So just to get to know a bit more about you, like what do you like to do outside of work? What's
Mm,
Ato's thing at the moment,
yeah.
or your hobbies or
Oh,
interests?
I've got so many, but my main hobbies. So I'm a traveler. Absolutely love traveling. I think traveling is probably a number one for me. And I think I get that from my mum. She loves to travel, loves absolutely. That's just who she is. I mean, we went to Porto very recently, and she had then booked a few more days to go to Lisbon. So that's kind of, that kind of thinking and that's just how she is as a person. So I got a lot of that from her. So yeah, I love traveling. This year I've traveled to lower than normal. I say normal. I think one of my highest years is probably 7 places. This year we did 4. So earlier in the year we were in Japan, we did Miami, we did Turkey, went to Portugal. We're planning another trip in February. But we're trying to also like roll back a little bit because obviously, traveling costs money. So need to try and be more of a saver essentially. Yeah.
You slipped on some interesting, like really cool countries in there, like
Mm.
Turkey and all sorts.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, traveling I'll say is my number one. And then I also like anime. So I like watching anime, although I've not had as much chance to watch anime because I'm, like working quite a lot. And so I like watching anime. When I was more fitter, I used to love football. How can I not say this? Actually, number one should really be Arsenal. I'm an Arsenal supporter, so I love football, love watching Arsenal. I've been a supporter of Arsenal probably over 25 years, so a long time. So I'm an Arsenal supporter. I watch most of the games. I haven't gone to see a game in a while because it's hard to get tickets now because like Arsenal are good again. When Arsenal were bad, you could get tickets like £15 tickets to go and watch us in like
So
Europa League. Yeah, it was interesting. So I managed to get. That was the last time I think I a few years ago now. So yeah, definitely love watching football. And then I would also say that I just like doing different things. I'm spontaneous. Like I like doing stuff that is different. So very recently, I did the Squid Game experience. I don't know if you have had the chance to do that. So that was quite good. So we've
I could
got
just
this
imagine what it
experience in
is,
London.
but it's
Yeah,
similar.
it's kind of like it. It's not like, I mean, come on, you're not going to die from it, but it's a good experience. It's a fun experience. It's an immersive experience. You do different games. I won't say what the games are just in case somebody wants to do it. So my wife and I did it. So I like doing things like that to just really broaden my horizons and whatnot.
Yeah, I do kind of similar stuff, like the football thing. Oh yeah, I'm a football
Mm,
guy. I play football. I try to play like every week nearby here. Luckily, it's kind of picking up here in Philippines. My brothers are
mm.
Arsenal supporters. They're loving this
Okay.
season. Top of the league.
Yeah.
I need to get your
Exactly.
prediction where do you guys all think you'll finish? Do you think you'll finish
I
top at the
want.
end?
Let me say. I believe we will finish top. Depends on the manager and the manager doing the job that he needs to do. It's a hard job, but he needs to keep it simple and not overthink. And I think he overthinks it. Tries too hard. Just keep it simple. Do everything to win. I think that's what he needs to think about. Do absolutely everything you need to do to win. Yeah.
Nice. And then animes. I love animes. What animes do you like? What's
So
in your
I'm
top
about to
two or
finish
three?
My Hero Academia. So that's
Yeah.
good. So for people that don't know, that's about superheroes. So if you're into superheroes, definitely check that out. I think you'll like it. Even if you're not into anime, you'll really like it because it's a great story. I was watching Jujutsu Kaisen. So I'm waiting for season 3 to come out. Yeah, I'm hoping that comes out soon. I was watching Demon Slayer, also waiting for the latest to come out, I think. Yeah, I watched the movie though, so waiting for the latest season to come out. So those are probably the top 3 at the moment. But I know
Yeah.
that there's people probably, anime fans probably slate me because they're like, Atto, there's other stuff, out there as well, which is true. I just haven't had as much chance to like deep dive like I used to be honest.
Yeah, Demon Slayer is the one definitely in my top. Like Demon,
Yeah.
I love Demon Slayer. Attack on Titan is another one that I
It
like.
is, yes. I need to
And
finish that. Everybody's like, oh, you haven't finished it? I'm like, no, I haven't. Yes, I'm going to get there. Don't
there's quite
worry.
a few episodes. Near the end, it gets a
Yeah.
bit weird though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like that. Yeah, nice one. That's so cool. So I just want to kind of roll back the years a little bit, like just to understand. Obviously, we'll talk about the finance stuff
Yeah.
in a minute and how you got into that. But kind of like rolling it back, like just to understand like sort of money mindset growing up. I think you're the eldest of 4. Is that right?
Yeah.
Elder.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like the opposite. I'm like the youngest.
Okay. Yeah.
So in our culture and sort of in Philippines, are you Nigerian,
Yeah.
Sierra Leone?
Nigerian, Sierra Leone. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But we might have similar thing because in Philippines, like the eldest is like the breadwinner, has to do everything,
Yeah.
has to pay. Sometimes in Philippines, they're actually asked to pay like the tuition fees of like the younger siblings,
Wow.
which is in like
That's
proper
crazy.
traditional like like Filipino like culture, which is mad. So I wanted to understand from like your perspective growing up, what was it like being the eldest?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that question. I think as the eldest, you have that pressure and anybody who's the oldest, you have that pressure of, being told you need to look after your younger siblings. If there's issues, you need to go and speak to them about it. And I would say though, my parents did put a lot of pressure on me to be like the role model though, which is nice. I didn't have like a pressure of, okay, you need to, from memory, from what I remember, but I did have the pressure of, I need to do well. I need to be educated, right? Because both my parents are educated to a high level. They both have degrees. My dad has a PhD. So I think it was almost a non-negotiable that you're not going to not be educated, right? You're going to have your degree at the minimum, and then you can kind of do what you want to do. I think they did originally want me to, go into medicine, and I wasn't really feeling that as well. And then I found myself into technology because I was like, I could see the opportunities in it, and it's a growing area. But yeah, I would say that being the eldest, you do definitely have that pressure and that responsibility that never really leaves you. So even now, even though none of us are kids anymore, I do still have that responsibility of checking in on them, seeing how they're doing, guiding them. It's like I'm almost their parent as well, right? So you do have that pressure there that it never leaves you, is the truth, right? Being the eldest. So yeah, I'll say that's what my experience has been, but I've never really felt like huge pressure from my parents. Like you need to like at every minute. They've done what they've done, what they can, and then where I can input, I'll input. But yeah, there's definitely that pressure there for sure. Has that made me who I am in terms of me being driven? Possibly. There's probably a possible element to that would have contributed, but I wasn't always driven. That's the thing. I wasn't always driven. I was ambitious, but I wasn't driven. And I think that's two different things. I think some people could be ambitious, but lazy. And some people can be unambitious and lazy. And some people can be unambitious and driven, right? And then obviously the other, variables of that. So I was always ambitious, but sometimes I was lazy. And now in my later years, I found myself to be driven because I want to achieve the things that I think I can achieve, and I want to fulfill my potential. as a human being. So I think it's important for people to think about that. Where on the spectrum are they? Are they ambitious and driven? Therefore, you know what to do. Are you ambitious but lazy? Okay, then figure out a goal for yourself, or figure out a few steps that's going to start, getting yourself on a train. I think one of the things that you have to kind of think about is like how you're driven. For me, I figured out that I'm one of those people. I'm a momentum person. So if I start something, for me, getting started is hard, but once I start, I don't stop. Like, I liken myself to an engine, right? Like, so I start off cold, and then once
it takes
I'm
a while
warm,
for it to get going.
yeah, and then I'm going, focused, doing it. So
It's not
I
stopping.
tend to not like stopping. I tend to just like doing stuff, because once I'm in the flow of doing it, I know I'm going to continue doing it, and I know it's harder to restart. So that's how I'm wired. Other people might be wired differently. Other people might be like, no, I can, as soon as I want to do something, I can do it. Right? Whereas I'm not. It takes me a bit of time to get going. So I think it's about your psychology as a person and figuring out that. But yeah, I think there's definitely that pressure of being the oldest. So I think it's kind of led me to being a bit driven and responsible. But at the same time, I'm also, as the eldest, I also let my siblings grow and be who they are and support where I can, not micromanage, because somebody doesn't grow that way. You micromanage them, right? And that's what I've learned through work. So yeah.
Nice. So obviously your content platform obviously is in sort of the financial niche. Sorry. So where do you think your early sort of money influences came from growing up? Did you have any sort of early money influences, whether it's in your family or your friends or people around you, or was that just something you just got interested in?
Yeah, I think I got interested in money again because of my mom, because my mom did business, a lot of international business. That's probably another reason for why she traveled a lot. So I think my love and interest from business came from her, because I would talk to her about it. I would count money. I just literally remember as you asked me this, because I think other people have asked me, but I hadn't thought deep enough. And as you asked me, I actually thought deep enough. I used to count money for my mom, right? For like
really?
her sales and stuff like that. Yeah, because
Nice.
obviously, back in the days, right? Like it was, before, like, not before completely before cards, but now we've got contactless and bank transfers and all that. A lot of business back then, a lot of it was cash. So she would tell me, "Oh, count this amount of money for me," and it'll be like quite a lot of money that I'm counting,
like
counting stacks and stuff like that. So
checking if they're real, putting it under the
checking
light.
if it's real, counting it, noting down how much. So I used to do a lot of that. So I think that was probably like my early experiences with like money, and then seeing that you could gain this huge amount of money from business. And I think that's probably where my interest started from. But at the same time, I would say within the household, I don't think I saw the best money management. Looking back, I don't think I saw the best money management. So in terms of what happened to me, I was a spender. So I think I saw spending in the household, not like crazy extravagant, but I think that, coupled with the fact that I had no education, so I just had money coming in, and I was young and I just spent it. That's where my kind of personality was kind of built from. But I always had, funnily enough, I always had that interest in money. Like I was like following Motley Fool, signed up for Motley Fool from a young age. I signed up to Money Saving Expert when it was Martin's Money from a young age, all of that stuff. So I always had an interest in it, but it was on the surface level, if I'm being honest with you. I never really understood the fundamentals of, okay, you need to budget, you need to save more than you spend, and all of these kind of things. I never really deep dive. I think I was just interested in, okay, money and making money. How do you do it? And that was where it stopped with me. Every other aspect, I didn't really care. So yeah, I would say it was definitely from, seeing my mom and her developing her businesses. That's where it started for me.
So that was your early side. But how about sort of when you were leading up to just before starting your platforms? What really got you into the sort of finance space at that point, sort of later on as well?
Yeah. So, you know how I mentioned that I was a spender. So at university, and to be fair, it's probably most people that go to university are probably like this, but I spent a lot of money. Well, and I say a lot of money, I spent most of my paycheck. I didn't really save my money. I just wanted to enjoy myself at university. And looking back, I don't regret that. That was my experience. I look back at it fondly. I think if you're going to do that, that's the time to do that. Quite frankly, I think that's the time to do that. Yes, you can save, but at the expense of enjoying your life. That's just my opinion, right? It might be different for others. So what happened was I got a student overdraft account. It was the overdraft was £500, not a huge amount, but a huge amount for me back then as a student. Not a huge amount. I didn't read the terms and conditions. I was supposed to be getting my student loan into that account. I was also supposed to be keeping it active, but my student loan was going into another account. And me not being like financially astute, I maybe would put like I spent the money up to £500, and maybe I'll put £5 here and there. And then after a period of a few months, I think a few years in, I kind of just stopped using the account. I wasn't active with it at all. And then I got a letter from the bank, not even a call or nothing, saying because this account isn't active, we're gonna close this account, and now you owe us this amount of money. And you're also in default. And I'm like, what? What is going on? This is crazy. But you know what's mad, right? Now that I think more about it, sometimes as well, I was also working at a phone shop and you do credit checks. So it's so weird. I'm doing credit checks for people, but then I'm going through this situation. And I'm still not taking it seriously because, sometimes when you kind of do a few financial service stuff and whatnot, you don't always think about your own personal situation all the time. You don't always liken it to your situation. So yeah, anyway, I was in default. I was put on a repayment plan for a few years. Left uni, was on that repayment plan, so I was paying that back up. I wanted to go and get a Sony tablet. Went to the Sony store. I basically did a credit check, failed the credit check, and then that was a very embarrassing moment for me. And I think it was kind of like the kick in the teeth. Everybody has those moments where it's like, okay, you need to step up. And that for me was, okay, enough is enough. I need to really, I think it wasn't just one thing, it was a few things. Okay, you're on a repayment plan, your credit score's bad, you've now, failed, what are you doing? You need to just really fix up here, right? So I also had the goal that I wanted to buy my first property. That was a big goal for me. It's something I wanted to do. I had friends that did it, so I think that also inspired me. I had a friend that did it very early on. So that inspired me and made me feel like, what, I can do it too. I can definitely do it. So I started off very small. I was saving £100 here, £100 there. That then snowballed into £200 a month. And then before you know it, I was saving £800 a month and etc. And then where I actually first started and what I realized helped me was one day I actually started to understand what my budget was. I went through all my transactions and then I started marking, okay, you're spending this on McDonald's, you're spending this on going out. Oh my God, have you seen how much you spent there? And I think that cringe made me feel like, okay, you need to set yourself a budget. Your budget's going to be, for example, £300. You're going to keep only £300 in the account. And then whenever you need more money or whenever you need to not even just spend, but whenever you need more money, right, you'll log into your account so that you're forced to check to see how much you've got. So I got into the habit of doing that over time. Once I set my savings goals, like I said, it was £100. I would just transfer that into a savings account. I had a few accounts, fortunately. So I had a bills account, and then I had one where my salary was coming in into it, and then I had a savings account attached to that, and then I would just move the money savings into that straight away, move the money to the bills account, and then leave the rest for me to as my fund money. So I was doing that over time, and then gradually over time, those numbers improved. So instead of it being 100, it was 300. It would be 300. It would be 700. As my salary increased, that's what I did. So I became quite methodical in that way of me. That was my process of making sure that, okay, I would only use the money that I've allocated to myself in this account. Everything else is moved to where it needs to move to, right? Move to your bills account. You've got your money in your savings account, which you're not going to touch because you understand that you're saving this for property. And then we had something here in the UK called a lifetime ISA. Just 3 years prior to me buying my property, so this would have been around 2015, 2016, you put in up to 4,000. I think this is still available. Put up to 4,000, and the government gives you, UK government gives you like an extra, tops it up with an extra 1,000, right? But you only can use that for either your first property or your pension. So I thought that was quite a great scheme for me. So that's how
Nice.
I got started into it, and that's how I transitioned from it. So it started small, and then it snowballed over years until I was able to save, a deposit for my first property in 2019, which I bought. So that's how I started on that journey. And then I think when I managed to buy my property, for me, I was transformed. I was like, okay, you now are a person who can save this. It wasn't easy, but you've been on a journey, you understand how to do it, and now you have all the principles and techniques of being able to do this properly. And then as I was doing that, that's when I was deep diving. So I think when my money got to a certain amount, I then started looking into, okay, how do I grow other things? How do I grow into other things? So that's when I started looking into investing. And then I started looking into like peer-to-peer lending as well. So I found a few good platforms where I was doing peer-to-peer lending. I also got into crypto in 2017 as well. Early on, I didn't invest a crazy amount. I'm looking back like, I wish I did. I wish I had more conviction. I believed that there was something with it, but I just didn't know what, right? So yeah, I started like diversifying, because what happened, right, was I had money in my account. I was like, this is boring. Like, there's nothing happening. It's just like just money sitting there. I was like, surely I can do something more with this. Like, it's a money. Like, so then that's how I, got into a little bit into investing, a little bit into crypto, a little bit into peer-to-peer lending at that time as well.
Oh, nice. So just to understand, obviously, what people to understand is like, you don't want people to think like, oh, this is like an overnight thing. Like,
Yeah.
could you give us a rough idea of like the timeline for when you started, when you said you started saving like initial like 100 or so, was that, how far back was that? And then obviously building that up until getting your house.
That would have been around 2013, 2014. And then I got my house 2019. So about 6 years, 5-6 years.
Yeah, nice.
5-6 year time frame was it. And I also would like to say that for many of those years, for at least half of those years, I was living at home. Mm-hmm. So I did take advantage of that. I didn't know, I took as much advantage as I could actually from home. Yeah. I mean, I could have stayed longer, but I also just wanted my own space. And I also thought that moving out would motivate me to do more. Because then when you are having to, although I was contributing, I heard an episode talking about like, parents, I was contributing at home. I felt I wanted to, right? It's not, I wasn't forced to. I contributed to the rent at home. And, but I also wanted to have my own space. But then I thought having that own space would allow me to be able to figure out how do I get to the next level. And to be fair, I think, although I didn't start Savvy Wallet while I was renting, I started it when I bought. And I think, that trajectory did kind of help me eventually do that.
Nice. And then when you did, like, obviously your initially, you said your goal was to get a property. Once you did get your property in sort of 2019, was there like another overall goal that came after that? Or like, did you have another sort of next step goal after that?
Yeah. So it didn't come straight away. I think after I got my property, I think for me, I was thinking, you know what? I want to get into business. I think that was the next thing for me. And I originally started off with like buying and selling items. So it started off with toys around Christmas, made a bit of money. I was like, oh, you know what? I like this. I want to. So that was towards the end of 2019, just a few months actually after I had bought my property. I was like, oh, I like this. And then in 2020, early 2020, I was like, actually, I want to try and do another side hustle. And then I wrote a bunch of stuff over the weekend. One of those things was like talking about personal finance. I was like, and business. I was like, I really like business. I really like personal finance. Maybe I should start a YouTube channel. I wanted to start a blog actually like 3 years before that, so 2016, but I wasn't brave enough to do it, if I'm being honest with you. So in 2020, I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go with this, personal finance YouTube channel thing, whatever. Started coming up with names. I chose a few names, asked my wife, asked my friends what you think of this name. It was Savvy Wallet. I had a few other ones. And they're like, yeah, we like Savvy Wallet. And I was like, yeah, I like it too. And then that's how it was born. And I was like, you know what? I will record my first YouTube video. Recorded my first YouTube video. I wasn't going to post it. I was about to quit. Before I started, I was about to not start Savvy Wallet. Savvy Wallet in another timeline probably didn't exist, if I'm being honest.
All right.
Yeah, in another timeline, it did not exist. You know how there's probably like other timelines? That it probably did not exist in another timeline because Atto was too scared to post. Atto was too scared of what people would think, or he didn't think much of himself. And, and just all the fears that you have with social media. We're doing this kind of work that we do.
I can totally empathize with that, by the way. So,
exactly.
I'm sure that's everyone.
Yeah, anybody that's listening to this, and it's not just social media, anything new that you want to put yourself out there. I know that there's going to be that fear. What if this? What if that? I think the truth of the matter is, right, like even if I look back at it 5 years ago, I don't even know if I remember what the fears were. So you're just kind of telling yourself stuff that you can't do things based just at that time. Even if those fears are true, so what? Still do it anyway, right? Because let's say nobody did watch it or nobody did like it. All right. You did it for yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? I think that satisfaction to say that you did something because you wanted to and you tried to do good in the world. I think that for me, I think you're going to live a much more fulfilling life than saying, I wanted to do something, I didn't do it, and then you just regret. You look back and it's like, why didn't I try? At least you knew you tried. At least if you said, yeah, I tried, I believe anyway, is a much better feeling to be like, at least I gave it a shot and tried. So I'm glad I did. It's worked out. It's worked out in some way. But yeah, for those people listening, watching this, I'll say, you probably listen to this in 2026. If there's something that you want to do, just go for it. I don't say to people, don't be scared. I always say, be scared, but do it anyway. Yeah. Be scared, but do it.
Do it scared. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Be scared, but do it anyway. You can be scared, but just fight through the fear and just do what you got to do.
That's it. That's what real courage is. When you're scared, exactly. But you're still going through it. Yeah,
exactly. You have to have the courage. I think it's important to do it because a lot of these things are just in our heads and they're designed to protect us, but they're not really protecting us. They're kind of holding us back.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, we'll touch on about the Savvy Wallet sort of platform in a minute. But just going back to like the sort of finance bit, on the personal finance bit. So obviously you've been going on that journey. You've been building it up. And as you were going along that journey, and I like to talk about like the freedoms and the options you get just by getting your sort of finances in order. In your experience, has there been any sort of freedoms that have unlocked for you or options that have opened up just by, handling your money well and in the right way, in terms of like outside of the money side, like your life and things like that? Is anything like that sort of opened up or appeared for you?
Yeah, I would say that for me, that the options are, I think because I've been able to manage my money better, I'm able to like travel to most places that I need to travel to without worrying about money, let's say. I've got my emergency fund, I've got my investments, so like I said, traveling is one of the things that brings me joy. So I'm able to do those things that bring me joy. Like I was also saying that I like to do spontaneous things. I'm able to do that. So I'll say I have much more of a peace of mind. That's where my freedom is. I don't really worry too much about money. That's because I've got the main things sorted. So I don't really worry too much or think about it daily, which is, I think, is a good place to be in, because like worrying about money, it can be stressful. And I'm not stressed. I'm not stressed about money at all. Right. And I think if somebody listening to this, if they have if they think about building these things, and they can build these things over the long term, especially whatever your financial goals are, if you work towards it over the long term, you can have that peace too. So for me, I think we were talking about offline, but there is a goal that I want to get to where I become work optional, right? I know me being wired the way I am, I'm still going to work. That's just the truth, right? So I've figured out that what it's called is like the bridge pot. So I want to become work optional, should I say, not retire, become work optional at 45, right? And so between 45 and basically bridge the gap to around like my late 50s, so around,
Is that for
57.
the pension?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Got
but
it.
it always changed. So I'm always very careful, because I believe it's going to 57 from when you can actually start withdrawing from your private pension. The thing is, I might not even withdraw from a private pension. I might just give that off to my kids, because I'm hoping that the businesses that I have, the investments that I have, can hopefully, it's likely I'll still be working at 57. This is the thing, right? Is the truth, right? But you can become work optional again with your pension. So yeah, basically for those 12 years, I essentially looking for a pot that will around 200 to 225k, which hopefully will allow me to be, not hopefully, I've checked, should allow me to be work optional if, I'm drawing around 3% of that money every year. And for me to get to that, based on where I'm currently I need to invest roughly around £1,000 a month over the next amount of time. I don't want to say my age, but over the next amount of time, I need to invest £1,000 a month.
I was just about to ask you what your age is as well.
I'm not revealing my age to people yet. Not that I don't care. I kind of find it funny to just not reveal it for a while. And then maybe one day I'll be like, oh guys, by the way, I'm this age. I just find it it's just like one of my little hidden secrets I don't want to tell people. So yeah, that's my next goal,
So funny.
to be work optional. But as I said, right, like when I was thinking about it, I'm like, Atto, it's likely at 45, I will still work, because what I do, Savvy Wallet, I love it. So I'll still be doing it, right? And it's likely it will generate something. So it's not, I will never not be doing anything, is the truth. But it does give me the option that if I'm like, you know what, I want to step away for a year, I can do that with, obviously I don't need to save 200k to do that. You just need to, if you know it's just going to be 1 year, you can save a year. But I think it's nice if it's like, you know what, it needs to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It just gives you options in terms of what you want to do. So that's the next goal that I'm looking at. And that would cover my main expenses. So it'll cover mortgage. It'll basically just cover all my expenses. And then anything else that I need to do, like for fun and stuff like that, I need to go and work and make that, which I'm happy to do, again, with that in mind. So I think when people are thinking of financial freedom, they need to think of those things. Like, realistically, what kind of person are you? Are you going to be a person that's just you're comfortable sitting on a beach, or is it something where you've got a creative skill and you just want to be able to cover your bills, and then you want to work on your creative skill, and then that creative skill then generates you income over time? I think that's how we need to think of it.
Yeah. So if someone's listening to this and they're interested to kind of get, whether it's build a house, or get a house, or get to, work optional, if you were to like advise this person, someone living in London, and they're listening to this, they're like, oh, this sounds really cool. Mm-hmm. If we were to give them like an outline of a step-by-step of how to kind of get there, what would you say is like the kind of like step-by-step rough outline of what they'll need to do to get going?
Yeah, I'll say work backwards. So figure out what your goal needs to be, right? So, okay, let's keep it simple, right? Let's say you had certain amount of expenses, your expenses was 1,000, and your goal was, I need to be able to generate £1,000 either passively or by like selling my investments every year, right? So that's your goal, right? So you start off with what your goal is, right? It doesn't have to be that goal. You just need to figure out whatever the goal is. But let's say in the context of, becoming work optional as a goal, because I know that's a goal for a lot of people, and you need to be able to, generate that 1,000, so 12,000 a year, right? I would say look at that goal, then use a calculator that's going to help you determine what that 12,000 basically equals. So for me, mine was, did I say how much it was? Okay, so I didn't say how much it was. So that my 1.7K, that, so it's 1.7K a month, right? So that was to last for 12 years. That equaled about 200 to 225K pot. So use a calculator. There's loads of online calculators. You can even use ChatGPT now. That will help you calculate this, right? It will then give you the pot that you need to create. So let's say the pot is, for argument's sake, just for this example, it's 100,000, right? So okay, that's the goal that I need to get to 100,000. So let's work backwards. How do you get to 100,000? Okay, so figure out what your overall budget is. How much is coming in? How much you're currently spending, right? Figure out where you are now. I normally like to figure out where you are now. So let's say, I don't know, you are 2,000's coming in and you're spending 1,000. So okay, you've got 1,000 left over, for example, right? But let's say actually, that 1,000 you're spending, you're being a bit reckless. So you now understand your current state. Then what you then need to figure out is, this is your current state budget. What's the budget that you realistically can work on? Can you squeeze a little bit more out? Can you just stay where you are? No. There's also lots of budget tools out there, or to be fair, a lot of the banks nowadays help you with a lot of like what's coming in, what's coming out. But if you're old school like me, you could also do it in a spreadsheet or notes and stuff like that to kind of figure it out. So step one, you figured out what your goal is. Use ChatGPT or any AI tool or any calculators to figure out, okay, what your overall goal is. Step two is you understand where you are at with everything. Step three, after you've kind of figured out what your rough budget stuff is, right? What's coming in, what's going out, and how much you can realistically have left over. Then step four is then figuring out, does that amount, right, can we potentially look to invest? Because ultimately speaking, if you're going to generate income, right, there's multiple ways. But if you want to do it, let's say a bit more passively, you then need to figure out, okay, if you want to do it passively, we look to invest in the stock market, right? It's a little bit more passive in a sense, because not that it doesn't require hard work. It does require hard work, but it's not active in the sense that you're not having to build a business to invest. You sign up to a platform, etc., and then you invest. So that's one avenue. That's the avenue that I'm focusing on at the moment. There are other avenues. I don't want to go into too much details, but obviously you can instead save the money to get into property. That can also generate you income, or you can save the money to, go into business. That business generates you income, and then you invest it, or it generates you income, and you put in a high yield account, and then it gets you that amount. So there are several ways you can do it. But if I focus on the investing way of doing it, so then you would then figure out, I think the investing, let's say you get 8% return, you would then figure out, is the amount that I have left over, let's say it's 1,000. If we get 8% return, how many years would it take to hit my pot of 100K, right? And again, you can use a calculator, or you can ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT can help you. Okay, if I put £1,000 in every month with an 8% return every year, how long will it take me to get to 100K? And then that'll figure it out. And actually, if I go back a step back a bit, so I talked about the goal. At the goal part as well, you can also define how long it's going to take you, to how long you want it to take you, but you might need to tweak it. So that's why I didn't really talk too much about the time, because it really depends on how much you put in and how much the return is. But you can have a prelim one, say, okay, I want to get to 100,000 in 10 years. You could start off with that, do the whole calculations, and then figure, actually, I need to be able to put in, if it's over 10 years, I need to put in 2K. I can't afford 2K right now. So am I happy to wait an extra 5 years? So you just play with these numbers until you figure out, or do I need to get another job? Or do I need to have a side hustle? So it's not, my point is that I'm saying here, it's not just one time that you're going to look at this. You might need to just play with the numbers a little bit, have your starting points, and then that will give you an understanding of, actually, I'm being way too ambitious. I want to get to 100K in 10 years, and I need to put 1,000. I need to put in 1.5. Okay, maybe I can put that, but I'm going to be really stretched and my quality of life is going to be poor. So actually, I'm happy to wait, 15 years, right? So that's how you kind of think of it. But yeah, if after you go from the investment part, let's say 1,000 is enough and you can do the 1,000 in 10 years. Let's assume those, that's correct and that's fine. Then you would then look to automate. I would say automate, frictionless, because when there's no friction, it's just happening when you need it to happen. You don't need to think so much about it. Now, with investing, I could talk to you forever about investing, but I'll keep it very simple. What most people do when it comes to investing, it's not as difficult to invest these days. There's so many platforms. So with investing, what you have to think about is, one, the platform that you need to use. There's many platforms out there wherever you live. In the UK, we have several investing platforms, but we have two different. From the investing side, I won't talk about the pension side. From the investing side, you have two different accounts. You've got what's called a stocks and shares ISA, which is essentially any capital gains on there, any dividends is free from tax. You can only put in £20,000 every tax year. There are other ISAs, but across all your ISAs, you can only put up to £20,000 every tax year, right? That's what most people do when they open it with an investment platform. They'll then open a stocks and shares ISA because of that, tax-free element. So that's number one. Get your investment account. Open with an investment platform. Obviously, look at like fees, and you want to try and keep the fees as low as possible, because that eats into your investments. Look at your who it is with. Look at if there's any tax-free accounts that you can take advantage of. And then step 3 is choosing your investment, which is arguably the hardest part, right? Most people put it into what's called like a low-cost tracker fund. So it means this is essentially like a fund that tracks like an index, and an index is basically like a list of, companies, right? So, like if I like football, if you think of like football world, we've got loads of different leagues. You've got the Premier Leagues, which is like the top best English leagues, the top English teams in the UK. And then you've got like La Liga, which is like the top Spanish teams, and blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing with companies. We've got similar like leagues across the world, right? So in the UK, you've got your top 100, publicly traded companies. In the US, same thing, top 500. So you have funds that basically essentially invest in a lot of that. So that's why when people say like low cost tracker funds, it's like doing that. And essentially it's also quite low cost because it's, it's tracking something where it is essentially like based on a list. So most people do that. Some of the most popular funds that people look at is something called S&P 500, stands for Standard and Poor 500. And then you've got global global trackers, which again, you can have loads of different global trackers. So again, please do your research. So it's a lot more than 500 companies. It's the biggest companies across the world, not just US. It's also Europe, UK, Japan, etc., and stuff like that. So a lot of people do look to global because they believe it's more diversified than just investing in just the US, for example. So once you've done that, you've figured out how you invest and you automate it. Like I said, make sure that automation is happening. I will say then your next step after that is to monitor it every now and again. And then after that, figure out ways to increase your income and try to get to your goal quicker, or diversify into other things. You're like, okay, I'm good on the investing side. Now I want to get into business. Now I want to get into property. And that's how you kind of do it, essentially. So those are some of the steps I would say.
Nice. Yeah.
People.
Nice one. And so essentially the strategy is to, as you mentioned earlier, the sort of the bridging pot. So get to a certain nest egg number. And it's kind of like getting to like a work optional age, for example. So you said 45. Exactly. So you're building up this massive nest egg to once you hit that number at 45, you could withdraw, I think what you mentioned like 3% or something from it. And that will cover your basic expenses until you get to being able to pull out from your pension.
Yeah, exactly.
And then just touching on sort of the index funds, I'm all in on index funds. That's me. And what are some of because I remember when I was looking into that back in the days, it took me ages, it took me months to like figure. I was looking at expense ratios, I was like comparing different index funds, and it took me a while. In UK, what are some of the? I know you mentioned S&P 500 and like some of the global ones. In UK, are they quite big on Vanguard and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Vanguard is huge. Yeah. Vanguard, I would say, is probably one of the most popular ones. So Vanguard. What's great about Vanguard is that, from my memory, checking on their platform, they don't have like loads of different funds. So, and a lot of the information is there. It's quite explicit. The difference in the fund. So I'll say Vanguard is very popular in terms of funds that they provide. There's another one called iShares from the top of my head that also provide funds. But I'll say Vanguard is probably the most well known. And there's actually a book from the founder of Vanguard that people that are interested in investing. Exactly. 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 Yeah. So if you check that out, he talks about that. So, talks about, investing in funds and stuff like that. So that's a good book to check out, especially if you're really just trying to like really get an understanding of this.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, that's so cool. I appreciate those steps. I love the steps. I used to invest back when I was in UK a while ago. And I used to do the old sort of Vanguard Life Strategy funds back in the day. But then, I do more sort of like in US nowadays, now that I'm in Philippines. But that's so cool. What are some of the challenges of investing from UK? Is there anything, I don't know, is there any kind of like UK policy or restrictions in UK, or for example, maybe you see in US or other countries it's like things are a bit easier. Are there anything from a UK perspective that makes it a little bit more challenging?
I would say probably from a beginner's point of view, maybe the education. I know that obviously we're doing the work that we're trying to do as much as possible, but I'll say that we don't talk enough about investing in the UK. So I think sometimes that makes it difficult if you're a beginner, like for you to have an understanding of it or for you to keep up to date with markets. Like when I was like proper deep in looking at markets, all the commentary that I would see online was all coming from the US every day, like CNBC and stuff like that. So I'll say that's where we kind of struggle. Like in terms of commentary, it's not a lot of it on like in terms of from a visual perspective. Like, you get like Financial Times and Economist and stuff like that, like writing about it. But from a visual, more engaging format, there's not a lot of that. Although content creators like myself and others are trying our best to bridge that gap. So I'll say there's probably a challenge from that perspective. But in terms of access, I think there's never been a better time for access, if we're being very honest, man. Like it's cheaper to invest. It's, you don't have to have a lot of money to invest in it as well. A lot of these platforms now you can invest with £1 and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a lot easier than it has before. So that's what I would say in terms of where we're at with it in the UK.
Nice, good stuff. And then you touched on it earlier, but obviously it's going back to the Savvy Wallet platform. You touched about how you started it and what you called it. Actually, was it called? It was called something else before, wasn't it?
The podcast was called the Takeoff Experience. Yeah. It's so crazy that some people remember that. And I'm like, wow, you guys remember this? Yeah, so it's called the Takeoff Experience. I honestly, when I think about it, I don't know what. I think I was just trying to be too smart for myself. I should have just called it the Savvy Wallet Podcast. Simple. I don't know why I was wanting to call it something else. I can't remember why. But Takeoff, I like that because I was like, oh, it means like you're taking off with your finances. That's like what I was thinking.
I thought it was quite cool, actually.
In my head. Yeah. And then that artwork, my original artwork, I actually was inspired by the rapper called Takeoff, who sadly passed away a few years ago. So that artwork was inspired by him. So then I used that for my for the Takeoff Experience, which I really liked it. But I felt it was quite great because it felt like you're taking off with your finances. So in the artwork, you had like in space, you had like the house, money, all flying around. I was like, yeah, it really kind of went. You know, what ended up happening was my guest started just calling my podcast the Savvy Wallet Podcast because the branding was so strong. So like, it was like, it's called the Takeoff Experience Podcast, but people were just calling it the Savvy Wallet Podcast. So I'm like, why have I got this confusion here? Let me just change it to the Savvy Wallet Podcast. And that's why I decided to change it to that. But you'll notice that I still kept a little bit of the same themes to pay homage to Takeoff Experience, because that's what it started off as and that's what it was birthed as. So
I was thinking
I still have the homage. Yeah, it's still the homage to that, but it's called the Savvy Wallet Podcast. Yeah.
The branding and the graphics. Yeah. That's awesome. So obviously you've grown it to where it is now. And as I mentioned earlier, over 200 episodes. What would you say are like the sort of 2 or 3 things that made it sort of a success over the years? If you were trying to like distill it down to 2 or 3 things, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say consistency for sure. As you can tell, I'm very consistent, right? I post an episode most Mondays. And if I'm not posting an episode on Monday, I'll let my audience know, say, look, I'm not posting an episode. I'm taking a break. I've done that more this year. Although in the early days, I did take a 4-month break. And I think that's because I was just trying to figure out, like, am I really enjoying this? And then when I was missing, I was like, actually, no, I really enjoy it. But you need to get a bit of a better process of how you can do this where you're not like burning out and you've got like a backlog. So I figured that out and that started to work over time. So I'll say consistency. I would say always trying to push the conversation to provide as much value as possible. So every time I have a conversation or I'm thinking about questions, I'm always thinking, okay, how will this be valuable for my audience? I'm always thinking that, like, I'm really like obsessed with making sure that this conversation, you leave it feeling like this has helped you in some way. Even if it's one nugget, you've got something from this. I'm always trying to push that as much as possible. It's very, very important to me that the people that are listening to this get something from it because you're spending your time listening to this. So I'll say, value obsessed was probably the second one. And then the third one was, I think, just trying to be normal and relatable. And when I say normal, relatable, it's because when I say normal, I'm normal in some sense. I'm abnormal in other things. Like I've got everybody's got their quirky bits. But what I mean is that like my platform is not about me showing off and saying I'm doing this. And it's really about you, but it's also about, how can I help you do the things that you can do, but also show you that it's not really out of reach. I did a lot of what I'm doing from the ground up. A lot of the guests that I've got, I've also done it from the ground up. So it's also possible for you. Not that it's easy, but it's also possible for you. So I think that's another thing, relatable. I think we forget that nowadays. Sometimes I think that we have conversations that don't mean nothing to anybody. It's like you've got somebody that's like 80,000 feet away from you, and you're like, how can I even get there? Like, you're too much of a success. Like, you're a billionaire. Like, how is that comparable to me? And also, I don't even want to be a billionaire. You know, I just want to be able to be work optional. Not everybody needs to be a millionaire. Like, look at the amount that I said, 200,000. That's not a millionaire. So, you know, I think people just need to think about what works for them. And so, yeah, that's why I say relatable, because it's not, yes, I've had millionaires on the podcast, but I've also had people that are not millionaires, and it's still, the conversation is still good. So I think that relatability was probably another thing that I would say that was important. And then 4, I would say really just doing it in a different way, like personal finance. If you like look at the oldest, they make it boring. I'm not gonna lie, they make it boring. It's like I feel like stiff upper lip. It's like no excitement to it. Uses a lot of jargon when there's no reason to use jargon. You know, really trying to show how smart you are. I don't think that's education. Education is really trying to help people understand what you're talking about. Now, if you're trying to do news commentary for a certain type of person, if that's what you believe, then do that. But if you're going to call yourself an educator, then you shouldn't be using jargon. You should be explaining what you're talking about, and you should be bringing people along on a journey, right? And I think that people can see that's what I'm trying to do, right? That I'm actually trying to do that. We're not trying to say you're here and then we're talking there. That doesn't make any sense. Why would I want somebody to listen to a podcast and you don't even understand what we're saying, right? That then feeds into, okay, that podcast is really for me rather than it's for you. So that's the other thing, actually being engaging and just like, you know, not being jargon heavy, I think is important.
Love that. And I like that what you said about their relatability. And do you have like a typical kind of listener in mind, or like what they call avatars, or do you have like a certain person that you have in mind that you speak to, or is it just kind of just slightly open? Or
I would say it's mostly somebody that is like me, that looks like me, that is around my age. So I always liken it to somebody, a younger
What's your age
version of
again?
myself. I can't say it.
Gonna slip that in.
I'll say somebody that was like a younger version of me, right? Like that didn't know what to do. Like they were working in the corporate world or had a business, and then they'll think, okay, how do I do better for myself? That's what it was.
Love it.
Just thinking about a younger version of me, right? And also, you know, me being black and me being Nigerian, I also know, and Sierra Leone, I know that there are certain experiences. So, you know, even navigating it from that perspective as well. So really just trying to target somebody that was like me, but a younger version of me. But you know, my podcast is listened to people older than me too, you know, and I don't exclude people from financial education because, you know, it's required, it's necessary. You know, but yeah, that I would say that's my typical avatar is
Nice.
A person that looks like me, you know, that's maybe come from a similar background as well.
Nice. And I love what you said earlier. The first thing was like the consistency side of it.
Yeah.
And obviously in the beginning we talked about, you know, you're working full time, and I'm just curious how you squeeze all of this in. Like, could you give us a sort of peek behind the curtain of what does your week look like?
What does my week look like?
for Atto?
That my
like,
week
do you have
looks
set
like
days for things?
I work every day. So that's the truth. I work every day. I do my 9 to 5, and then in the evenings I'm working, whether I'm working on guest questions, whether I'm going to record with a guest, whether I'm watching and recording, whether I'm, you know, working with brands, whether I'm reaching out to brands, whether I'm reviewing guest options. Yeah, I'm working every day, every weekend. I pretty much have worked every weekend, but maybe one. So it's a lot. You know, this is essentially a full-time job, is the truth. But I'm okay with it because I put myself in it. It's not like I didn't decide it. I decided to be here. So I'm also at peace with it, to be honest with you. It is a lot of hard work. At some point, I will transition into doing it full time. But yeah, it's a lot of hours, a lot of weekends.
Do you delegate certain days or certain things? Like Fridays are this day, Friday this is
So
a
my reach
recording
outs,
day.
I've
This is
got
a yeah.
So basically, it depends though, because I don't record on the same day. Is mostly dependent on the guest's schedule. Because some guests can make certain days, so it's not always like the same. For example, let's say a guest is recording on a Friday, then maybe I'll do their questions the week before, like a Friday and stuff like that. But my episodes normally always come out on a Monday. I normally like to get the guest questions done early. So normally I would like to get that done on a Monday. First, wrote it, sent it to them. They have some time to prepare. And then Tuesdays would normally be maybe me looking for new guests. Or sometimes I might do it on Monday after I've done that. Tuesday will be me looking for guests and then maybe reviewing recordings from previous episodes. And then Wednesdays is me potentially like looking at like the actual episodes themselves, which ones are going to kind of come out, and then start scheduling it. And then Thursdays like brands and stuff like that. So it's quite dynamic as well. I do have people helping me. So I have people who, reach out to people. I have editors and stuff like that too. So yeah, so but that support's come over time. It wasn't straight away. That was only in the last 2 years, to be honest with you. And it's staggered. So first it was somebody helping me reach out, then it was editors, and then that's where we're at with it now.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. I love it. And I remember one of your episodes, it was like after you'd done 100, I think it was, you done like the 5 things I learned.
Yes.
I love that one.
I even forgot what I said I learned. It's so long ago. It's 2 years ago. So,
I remember that one. That was a good one. I like that. I think one of the things you said was like be brave. That stuck with me. So I like that one.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, before we go over to the quick fire round and 5 questions, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on? Maybe I didn't mention that. Is there something that you wanted to say? Yeah, whether it's in the finance space or creative space, anything that you wanted to...
The only thing I was going to say, and I think I said this to you offline, is that for the people watching and listening to this, congratulations, you're definitely in the right space. What Greg is doing is amazing. And also for yourself, the fact that you're curious enough to be like, you know what, I want to make a change in my finances. Some things is obviously, nudged you to want to do that for yourself. And I think it's very important. And I was saying to Greg that we're moving to 2026 is quite uncertain in terms of, I know many of us have heard of AI losing jobs, job market being tough, the cost of living crisis and stuff like that. And in the way I see the world going is, what I was saying to Greg is, we can't really compare it to our parents' time. Yes, their house prices were lower. When they were in their jobs, they were in their jobs for longer, and then they were getting final pensions. A lot of maybe what we've learned might have been based off that. So we need to relearn some of these things. And not only relearn some of these things, we also need to start becoming more comfortable, us also being a bit more dynamic, right? Because of the way the world is now operating. I would say, I think the world is operating more like an entrepreneur. We're now in an entrepreneur world. And when I say that, I don't mean in the sense that everybody needs to have businesses. No, that's not what I mean. Because you can technically kind of be an entrepreneur. You can have that entrepreneur mindset if you're in, corporate career, right? You could be somebody that's like, you work at a company for 2 years, gain all your skills, and then job hop, get your increase. To me, that's like an entrepreneur mindset, because you are taking, control of your career, increasing your salary as much as you can, increasing your skills as much as you can, right? You're absolutely taking control, where somebody else could be very passive. Not to say that they're not getting promoted, but maybe they're not adopting new skills, and maybe they're not increasing their salary much because they're like, oh, I'm just happy to have a job. To me, that's probably the most dangerous position to be in, because essentially your life is in somebody else's hands. If that company says to you, oh, well, we're going to let you go, it's tough for you, right? But it can be mitigated if you have an emergency fund. It can be mitigated if you have investments. it could be even more mitigated if you have a side hustle, because you now have the skill to be able to, earn money by yourself, right? But what does those three things show me? It shows me that you've taken some form of control in your life, right? But imagine you've done none of that. You don't have an emergency fund. You have no investments. You have no side hustle. Plus you're laid back in an economy where people are losing jobs. People are saying AI is taking our jobs. Things are becoming more expensive. To me, that's a person that's leaving your life in somebody else's hands. And it's quite risky, because if something unfortunate happens, you're screwed, right? So I think it's important to think about the environment that we're operating in. We're operating in a fast environment. I know it's not fair, and I know it's not fun. And I'm also not saying you need to go and have a side hustle. No, I did say, as long as you've got emergency fund and you've got investments, you are fighting back and also taking a bit of control. If you're doing those two things, that's enough, in my opinion. If you're making sure that you're putting enough away, and then eventually you can become work optional. If you go back to what we were talking about in our goals, you're putting your life in your own hands. I think it's dangerous in the current environment not to do that. I think it's becoming almost mandatory that we need to understand this stuff. I know it's unfortunate that we didn't get financially educated. It's bad that we didn't. But with all this content that's out there, podcasts like yours, podcasts like mine, other people's content, not that it's not an excuse, but you now have these options to decide if you want to take control of it yourself. So I wanted to really say that, because I see where the world's going, and I just don't want people to struggle if there's things that they can do to kind of avoid that struggle,
that risk of happening. Yeah. And I like how you said, like, it's getting to be more entrepreneurial, but people don't know if they think about it as like, outside of their workplace and all the things that they can do. It can also be in their workplace. I think they call it entrepreneurial, like figuring out different things at work, creating a new role for yourself.
Exactly.
Putting suggestions to the table.
Exactly.
There's that bit of it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be passive. Exactly. Because if you do that, you then can increase your income. Then that income can be invested. You can property, you can do other things, right? Essentially, I'm just saying, just don't be passive, because unfortunately, I can't say too much. It's just that the job market is so bad. Honestly, it's so bad. I thought it would improve. It's just getting worse and worse year on year. And no one's really talking about it, which is scary. Like, nobody's talking about it. People that are going through it are just suffering in silence. And it's almost as if you're in a job, you might not know that this is happening. But I speak to people offline, and I know this is happening to people. And, so, yeah, one of the things for me is, me doing a job I do, I also try my best to understand trends and figure out trends. So I can also, when I do talk about finances, I can also put that lens over for people to help them, make sure that they're navigating this new world that we're in, that's just getting disrupted every few years. I mean, it's just like so tiring. We dealt with COVID in 2020, was dealing with that for a few years. Now we're having to deal with AI and a tough job market. What are we going to have to deal with? It just feels like it's just one thing after another. And I get it and I understand it. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, just take one step at a time. Just do, maybe it's just, okay, let me start off with saving £50 a month for my emergency fund. Do that for a year. And then I start moving into investments. Move as aggressive as you feel comfortable doing. But as long as you're taking some action, you're going to be always better off taking some action than no action.
Yeah, exactly. So just one really quick question before we jump over. So talking about, like, in UK, there's always one thing after another. So I left UK in 2018, moved to Philippines. Would you ever consider living abroad, living somewhere else outside of UK?
Yeah, I would. I definitely would love to, but you have to look at the logistics of it, because everywhere in the world, I feel like everybody wants to move to the same places, the Dubai, Canada. So it's like, if everybody wants to move to the same places, then they also become saturated, and it's like, okay, is your your quality of life is probably still going to be good. But yeah, I would love to. You know, it is something that I definitely would love to look into for sure at some point. Like, yeah, leaving the UK. I know a lot of people are doing it. It's like the exodus is crazy. It's mental. Yeah.
Mad. Awesome. All right, so we'll jump over to the quick fire round. So I've got 5 questions, Atto. Just answer them as quick and briefly as you can.
Okay.
And then I'll just go through one after the other. So if it's all right with you, I'll just jump straight on to the first one.
Okay.
All right, so question number 1. What's something you wish you'd done 10 years ago?
Start a business, 100%.
Awesome. Question number 2. What are 1 or 2 daily habits that have helped you in your life?
I don't do this every day, but gym, I've realized, helps me to be motivated throughout the day, helps me to keep going. Another thing that I like doing is if I'm struggling with doing, any big task throughout the day, I'll start off with something small that's easy. Right? If it's like sending an email or set up this meeting, and that'll get me into the momentum of, it'll be the icebreaker for myself to be able to do something.
Ooh, I like that one. Number 3, your most important lesson in life.
I would say don't be scared, just do it. I think that we let the fear of failure and being scared hold us back from doing the things that we want to do in life. Enjoy your life. We have one life, so enjoy it. Enjoy it doing what you need to do.
Love it. Number 4, what are 2 or 3 transformational books or any other artistic media that you'd recommend to listeners?
Yeah. So a book that I really like, and I've had the author on my podcast, How to Own the World, is a great book. So it talks about investing, and it talks about like when you do invest, how to own the world. So that's a very great transformational book. Think and Grow Rich. I know people say what they got to say, but I think that really got me into like this space. I have to pay it homage because that's what I think really helped to grow me. And then there was one other book that I was thinking of that I liked. 48 Laws of Power is a great book. It's long though. Gosh, it's so long. But it's a great book because it got me to understand, some of the negative experiences that I may have had at work. It got me to understand why I may have had those. So that book is a lot about like power and power dynamics and stuff like that. So I honestly read it, but don't be trying to like utilize all of the stuff. Don't like be so literal with it. It's a good book for understanding people and understanding how people are, especially in like power dynamics.
Nice, thanks. And then question number 5, what are 1 or 2 small things listeners can do this week if they wanted to kind of get to where you're at, sorry.
Okay, to get to where I'm at. 1 or 2 things, I would say 1, you need to figure out where you are in terms of your finances. So figure out what stage you are, because if you don't understand where you are, it's very hard to be able to move the needle, right? So just do that exercise. One day, go through your bank statements, maybe do it listening to music, do it whilst you're doing something relaxing. Maybe there's a show in the background, so it's not so, stressful for you. Or you can do it with somebody if there's somebody that you can trust. And then the second thing is figure out your goal, figure out where you want to get to. If there's a goal, let's say, like I said, it's 100K, maybe print out something that's got to also inspire you. So is it a nice car that you like? Is it a really nice house? Is it a nice place that you want to maybe relocate to? Have those kind of things, because that will then motivate you and energize you to want to do that, especially in like 2026 as we're starting a new year. So I'll say those 2 things are very, very important. Knowing where you are at now and knowing where you want to go to.
Nicely said. All right. Thanks, Atto, for the
you're welcome,
answering the quick fire question round.
Thank you.
Is there anywhere you'd like to send the listeners, or any sort of things any plugs you'd like to throw in?
Yeah, sure. So you can please do check out my platform. So it's called Savvy Wallet, And then we produce, as Greg mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, we produce the Savvy Wallet podcast, which mostly comes out every Monday. Only aside from like Christmas, like where I'm going to be taking a break, but it mostly comes out every Monday, 8 a.m. UK time, and it's across all platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So wherever you can find your podcasts, you'll probably find it. Yeah, so that's the Savvy Wallet podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Atto. Really had a good time today. So
Thank
really
you.
good.
Yeah, it was a great
Chatting.
conversation. Thanks so much. Yeah, no, it was good. It was good. I could definitely speak to you a lot more. And hopefully you invite me again in the next, at some other point as well. I'm very happy
I'd love that.
But yeah, if people have got any other questions, please do reach out to me. If there's like, any questions you have about the world or investing or anything like that, please, do. And just let me know what you thought of this episode. If you wanted me to share more, very happy to get feedback on that. And just like I said, I just want to give value to people.
Awesome. All right, Atto. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Greg.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. If you need more help, you can check out our free guides and services on our website, freedombeforephi.com. If you have a burning question or just want to chat, don't hesitate to drop me an email at greg@freedombeforephi.com. If you found the show useful and want to be notified of future episodes, you can click follow on Spotify, Apple, or the app you're currently using right now. If you think the episode will help a friend or a colleague, feel free to share it with them. And lastly, if you learned just one good thing that will help you in your journey and you want to help us out, please do leave a 5-star rating on your podcast player app. That would help us out loads.